This is Amazin Way with Joe Masseri.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Amazin Way. I am Joe Masseri, and we might have blizzard conditions here in New York right now. But you could look out your window and see snow, or you could look at your television set from this weekend where the Mets and Yankees played a spring training game down in sunny Tampa and choose to think warm thoughts. At least that's what I'm doing. Thanks for tuning in this week. We've got lots to talk about as the Mets officially kicked off their spring training season, and they got a win over the New York Yankees, so things are okay for Mets fans right now. But all eyes were on Bo Bichette as he took his position at third base when the Mets started their spring against the Miami Marlins. And Bo Bichette has admitted that he needs reps this spring at third base. Last week we heard from Howard Johnson, Mets legend, who moved from shortstop to third base, or Nelson Figueroa talked to him about the difference. And Howard Johnson said, if Bo Bichette is the guy who's getting 200 hits a season, well, then his defense isn't really going to matter that much. I disagree, because this was the David Stearns experiment. And he said that saving runs was just as important as scoring runs. And that's why they made some of the decisions that they made. Now, look, Steve Cohen came out this week and said that this team is a playoff team. It should be a playoff team. So there are a lot of expectations on these guys to go out there and perform. And probably none bigger than Bichette because of the role that he's stepping into. He is the biggest name free agent signing, at least in the field or offensively, that the Mets are going to be looking to, that Mets fans are going to be looking to replace some of those guys who left. And look, he had a throw against the Marlins. Wasn't a great throw. The error ended up getting charged to Jose Rojas. He got an error, but Bichette admitted that the throw took him offline a little bit. So naturally, a lot of the questions that Bichette has been getting down at spring training have been about how will he perform at third base and what does he need there. And here's what he had to say in the early going about how third base is a little different from what he's used to at shortstop.
It's more forward to back than side to side. I mean, shortstop definitely have to come in, but yeah, the having more time at third base is something that I'm getting used to and understanding that I can take a little bit more time.
In terms of like the whole third base skill set, just where do you feel like you are right now on a scale of like 1 to 10?
I'm not sure I can even put a number on that. I haven't played any games, so that's going to be my biggest hurdle. But I'm excited for it and excited to get comfortable there and excited to play games there.
So every rep that he can get this spring is going to be important. So much so that the Mets are keeping him at third base, right? We know Francisco Lindor's dealing with that broken hand. It's not like Bichette is sliding over there. It's not like if things go wrong with Lindor and his recovery and he's not ready for opening day and has to miss a few more weeks. Not saying that he will, just throwing out there that the Mets have to be ready for that possibility. I don't think Bichette's moving over there. So you got to figure out what the next option is going to be. And Bichette is fully committed to third base right now. You look around the infield, right? Bichette, obviously not the only one. I mentioned that Jose Rojas got the error against the Marlins. Well, Jorge Polanco is likely going to be the regular, I won't even say everyday first baseman, but he's going to be the regular first baseman for these Mets once the season starts. And so he needs to be ready to go at the position. But the thing is, Brett Beatty's going to get some reps over there. Mark Vientos might get some reps over there. Lou Bob won't. He won't be getting any reps at first base. But you look at the fact that it's going to be kind of a platoon position, and Polanco hasn't played first base before, right? He too needs to get ready for it. He's taking some reps down there at spring training right now. He acknowledged that that's going to be a work in progress. Here's what he had to say about his new position when he got down with the Mets at Port St. Lucie.
Here early, trying to work, especially on my body, and then trying to work on first base. I know it's a new position, so I got to get the work done. Very excited for this new journey with this new team, a lot of new faces. For me, I just got to get to know everybody, get to know my teammates. And I'm very excited to have this opportunity and to come here and play this game.
So he's got the right attitude, right? All these players knew what they were getting into when they came here, if they're going to be playing out of position. Even Juan Soto, we talked about this last week, moving from right field to left. But I'm very interested to see how that's going to affect guys like Beatty, like Vientos. Beatty right now, coming back from injury, he's only been taking reps at first base. Is he going to be the primary backup first baseman? What happens to Mark Vientos? Let's not forget, last year, we came into spring talking about Mark Vientos as being the guy, right? He was the guy for the Mets. He had that ridiculous run in the playoffs, and Met fans were hopeful that he was going to carry it over. You look at his 2024, 266 average, 837 OPS, 27 home runs, 71 RBIs. That's in 111 games. And then last year, he lost his identity. He went in with all these expectations on his shoulders, and he wasn't able to fulfill them. 233 average, 702 OPS, just 71 home runs, and 61 RBIs in 121 games. Mark Vientos was the talk of a ton of trade rumors this offseason, but the Mets didn't let him go. So where does he fit? I think likely it's going to be DH. And if he hits, well, the Mets then might move him at the trade deadline because he doesn't have a position with this team. He has to be so good that the Mets can't trade him. He was so bad last year that the Mets had to keep him another year because I don't think other teams valued him. Obviously, he's a liability on defense. He's shown that at third base. Beatty had a good season last year. 254, 748 OPS, 18 home runs, 50 RBIs in 130 games. But those weren't as good as the numbers that Vientos put up in 2024. And these guys are a redundancy. I feel like one of them has to end up getting moved. And I think that's the best case scenario for the Mets is if they both play well in the opportunities that they get and they're able to move one of them at the deadline. But it's crazy to think that that would be the case considering where we were just a year ago when it came to Mark Vientos. Well, our Simone Eli caught up with Vientos down at Port St. Lucie. And I gotta say, if he's feeling any extra pressure this season, he didn't really let on. Here's a little bit of the conversation between Simone and Mark down in Port St. Lucie.
High energy, a lot of just off-season excitement as well. What's the conversations been like here in the locker room?
Like you said, it's just off-season excitement, just seeing guys that are coming in that are big-name guys that we get to play with and share the same field with is going to be exciting, especially for the fans and ourselves. Just get out there and start the season and see what we do. I think we got a good chance to do some big things.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel great. Body feels good. Like I said, can't wait to start.
Absolutely. For you, is anywhere like anything particularly that you're going to be working on, focused on, this spring right now as you guys get ready for opening day?
I think my main plan always is just like trying to better my game overall in every aspect, even the little things like defense and base running and stuff like that. Just trying to be super attention to detail and get better on all aspects of my game.
Yeah. A minute ago, you mentioned a lot of big name players. How does kind of like iron sharpen iron when it comes to guys kind of fueling each other to get better this off season as you guys prepare for opening day?
I think that's the good thing about us, especially the guys that have been here for a little bit that I know. We're all curious guys, and we like learning, and bringing guys in that have been doing it for a while at a high level and get to learn from them is a blessing, and it's a good thing we have a bunch of guys to learn from.
You gonna miss the snow?
Definitely not.
Yeah, none of us missing the snow. We don't have a chance to miss it here in New York. I think it's interesting because you hear Mark Vientos talk about the other guys that they brought in, that the Mets brought in. And maybe having a fresh voice like Bo Bichette will be helpful for Vientos. Bichette talked a little bit about getting that winning mentality, right? And he was in a similar situation up in Toronto when he first got there with the Blue Jays. He and Vlad Guerrero were supposed to bring in the new generation of Toronto baseball. It took a little while, but they were able to do it. They got to the World Series. And now you look at a guy like Vientos, and he needs a little bit of that maturing. And I think that Bichette might be able to help him do that. And you hear him talking about focusing on defense, focusing on base running, focusing on the little things that are going to help you win games. And Bichette said part of the reason he was coming here to the Mets was because he learned in Toronto that when you put the sole focus on winning, well, you see the results out on the field. When you see a clubhouse where everyone makes the focus winning baseball games, you go out there and see the results. And if he can have that effect on Mark Vientos, then I think that we could see him mature a lot. Now, the question is he going to be doing that here in New York, or is he going to be doing that somewhere else? We'll have to see at the trade deadline. All right, we're going to take a break here on Amazin Way. When we come back, we're going to talk about Steve Cohen and how he feels about the captaincy. It raised a lot of eyebrows this week. That's coming up when the Amazin Way returns. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Welcome back to Amazin Way. I'm Joe Messeri, and before we left here for the break, we were talking a little bit about Steve Cohen's comments this week regarding the captaincy of the New York Mets. And it was very interesting because Cohen said that as long as he is owner of the Mets, there will be no captain. Now, I'm not sure how much this got around, how much conversation there was with any individual players, if any. Carlos Mendoza said he is on the same page, that they have a lot of leaders in this clubhouse. And I think that's fair, right? I think you look at this team, and obviously Juan Soto, he's not a vocal leader, at least not outwardly from what we see, what the media sees. But when you make that much money, you're going to be somewhat of a leader. And you see guys like Luis Robert spending time training with him this offseason. You look at Bo Bichette, and he's a leader on this team now because he came from a team that just went to the World Series. You look at guys like Sean Manaea. He's been a leader for this pitching staff. So there's been plenty of leaders on this team. Look at homegrown talent. Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, both pretty much filled that role. They're gone now. The one remaining guy, though, that people aren't really thinking about how this is going to impact is Francisco Lindor. Lindor is a Met who has a long contract, who has tenure with this team, who has been a leader on this team already. He's the first one that reporters go to. He's been the MVP candidate with this team. He's the shortstop, so he's a leader on the infield. And I'm really interested to see how this plays out this season, because we're coming off a season where there was questions about what relationships were like in the Mets clubhouse. Was it a clubhouse divided, a clubhouse that was full of talent and yet failed to make the playoffs? And I know Francisco Lindor is Mr. Smile. He's going to give the right answers, right? Or at least what he thinks is the right answers, going back to the rat or the raccoon. So he's going to say it's no big deal. He's going to say we have a lot of leaders in this clubhouse. But I feel like it's got to hurt a little bit when you look at the history of the franchise. Now, the Mets have had 4 captains in their team's history. David Wright, the last one, Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, and John Franco. And when you think about captains around baseball, it's not like it is with hockey and football. In fact, there are only 2 teams in Major League Baseball that currently have a captain. That would be the Yankees with Aaron Judge and the Royals with Salvador Perez. So it's not that every team has a captain, and so you have to name one. But you look at the track that Lindor was on, and if this team finds success, he's kind of the guy that this roster has rallied around. And I think that you encourage cliques within that clubhouse. I don't know how this is going to play out as the season progresses. It may not be anything. Might just be a blip on the radar. But I think it's something to watch coming off a season where the clubhouse chemistry was something that was questionable with the Mets last season. So, Francisco Lindor won't be captain. I doubt he'll frown about it. But if the Mets start to struggle this season, it's something I think you're going to want to pay attention to. Well, one of the things that we talked about when it comes to the Mets and the potential leaders on this team, of course, we were talking about Sean Manaea. And the Mets and Manaea, Nolan McLean out there, a bunch of Mets, came together for a great cause down at Port St. Lucie last week as they hosted some athletes from the Special Olympics. 60 athletes were on hand. Jonah Tung signing some balls, teaching them how to throw pitches. They got some personal one-on-one training. They got to find out what it was like to be a big league ball player. This is something the Mets have done now for a little while, and you can see that this is extremely rewarding. Not just for those Special Olympic athletes, but for the players who get to share their love of the game. And here's what Manaea had to say about the experience last week.
Means a lot, being hired with all these, very awesome athletes, being able to play the game of baseball. It's a kind of a universal language, and just come out and have some fun, and just spend an hour or two with everyone, and it was a great time.
Baseball is a universal language. I love to see the smiles on everybody's face down there. Love to see the Mets coming together for a good cause. You got to say the organization has really been lights out with that over the last few seasons, not just with the Special Olympics, but with all their initiatives, with fans, with the community. Keep it up, right? That's one thing that gets the fans to continue to believe in this organization. Well, we're just getting started here on Amazin Way. We're going to have you covered throughout the season, so don't forget to tune in to each and every week. We will follow the storylines coming out of spring training as we get you ready for opening day and a 2026 baseball season. Hey, maybe those warm thoughts will help melt the snow. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Joe Messeri. I'll talk to you next week.